Okay. I believe we should be live here. Larry, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing okay, buddy.
Okay. So our volume's a little low today because I'm having some audio problems here at the
I'll
hotel.
try to talk up. I don't know if that will help any.
Yeah. So, Larry, I'm in England, and this is, how are you doing there in Arkansas?
Hanging in, buddy.
Good. Okay. I'm like in a dark room with terrible sound, and I think people want to hear, Larry, what you have to say about the latest stuff in Iran and the assassination of Soleimani.
Well, first off, let me ask you, is this all right? Or is this better?
Sounds good.
All right.
Yeah.
No, back on my headphones, it's easier. Well, what's happening in Iran? You know, Jason, I had said on this very program, if you'll remember a program or two back, that what they're doing with this impeachment stuff is affecting our international relationships, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's messing everything up. Leaders are concerned about talking to the president, number one, because they now know everything's monitored. They also don't want to be caught up in some scandal.
Mm-hmm.
So basically the Democrats have cut the president off from a lot of communication with other countries that we need.
Yeah.
But worse than that, the Democrats have sent people to Jordan, to Qatar, to convince the countries in the Middle East just that Trump is going to be outed. Remember, the main thing they get there is CNN. So if you were a foreign leader and the main news you get from America comes from CNN, then there's no doubt what you think. You think he's in serious trouble. Then when you get confirmation from people representing the Congress or the Congress people from our government, there's no doubt there's trouble. Well, then the president orders the hit on the general. Now, let's make it very clear. This general has been on the list since during George Bush Jr.'s term.
Mm-hmm.
He's been on the list to kill or capture whenever an opportunity presented itself, right?
Yeah.
It's been there the whole time. Now, the president gets the shot. He orders his people to take it. They do. They get rid of him. Then the Democrats jump on the president. Well, they're playing right into the hand of Ayatollah. The Ayatollah. Look, the Ayatollah is crazy. When I say this, he's stupid. He's not really crazy. He's not crazy enough to totally start a war with this country, but he will tempt us. And especially thinking that half of this country is against the president and that the government is against him.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got real trouble. The Democrats are actually empowering the Iranians.
It seems like they're ready to sacrifice the whole country, Larry, just over this Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, the thing that I'm concerned about is that we heard that this assassination of Soleimani was triggered by a missile strike on a U.S. base. And I feel like so many times these things happen. We don't know who fired the missiles. Anybody could have fired these missiles, and they just decide it's Iran and they go and kill the guy.
Well, from what I know, that's not necessarily true. They most definitely were able to find out where the missile came from and who it came from. Now, if it was at the direct order of this general at that exact moment, that I can't tell you.
Right.
But there's little doubt in the military that the missile that hit the base was from Iran, an Iranian missile.
Right.
And look, the tension's been building there long before this. President Trump has used moderation. As a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons Bolton's gone. Bolton is kind of coming out now saying, see, I told you so.
Well, right. He's all ready to testify, but nobody's surprised by that, Larry. Everybody knows John Bolton is a snake, and he's ready to throw President Trump under the bus.
What he's saying, I told you so, over is why he and the president got crossways. He wanted to move back then on Iran over the Straits of Hormuz. He wanted to go ahead and conduct the first strike. Bolton has always been a war hawk.
Yeah.
Now, the president used good judgment back then, some would say, but he didn't go after him. But this was a combination of two things, Jason, and everybody needs to understand it. There were two predicates to this general being killed. Number one, you had the civilian that was killed, the American civilian was actually killed by a missile that was Iranian, a rocket. Then you got the other factor, which is the guy's been on a hit list for years. So killing him was well founded. The problem is, if he'd have let him go and the Democrats found out that they had him zeroed in and could have taken him, if he'd have let him go, they would have cornered him over that. They would have said he's not a good leader. Now, they're attacking him, and what's terrible, Jason, is you were right. They're just doing it for the politics involved in getting rid of Trump.
Yeah.
To hell with the country. They don't care. They care not about this country. They care about one thing and one thing only, and that's destroying President Trump.
Right. So, Larry, I learned about something recently that was pretty troubling. We were having a conversation with Ole Damagard and David Hawkins about Porter Goss, who became the CIA director, I think, in 2004 or 2005, after being the House Intelligence Committee chairman, the position that Adam Schiff now holds. Now, the concept of Adam Schiff becoming the CIA director someday is such a disastrous proposition, it's difficult to even contemplate. But isn't that Porter Goss going from chairman of the committee that's supposed to oversee the CIA to the director of the CIA seems to contradict the purpose of an oversight committee? What do you know about Porter Goss, and what do we know? I mean, it just seems to me that the Intelligence Committee, which is supposed to, control the CIA, is a tool of the CIA.
Right. And it's been that way for years, since I was involved, Jason. Don't doubt for a second that it's not just a tool. All of the oversight committees are really serving dishonest purposes. Mm-hmm. For example, the people with the SEC or the Food and Drug Administration, the oversight of that.
Right.
They pass out to other senators and congressmen new drugs that are fixing to hit the market, miracle drugs, so to speak, that are going to raise the stock prices of major drug companies. They find out ahead of time. They buy the stock. They get rich, right?
Yeah.
It's done all the time.
Yeah.
And then if you look at these committees, you have to realize, Jason, that the legislation that comes before these committees, before it goes to the House or the Senate floor, the actual legislation is not written by members of Congress or the House or the Senate. It's written by the lobbyists. The lobbyists. The large drug companies, the military-industrial complex lobbyists, they're the ones that draft the bills. Then they simply turn it over to the committee, and the committee rubber stamps it.
Mm-hmm. I guess what I'm asking, Larry, is to what extent is Adam Schiff, do you think, just carrying out the wishes of the deep state, the CIA, whatever, and he's going to get his payoff in 2024, 2028. Adam Schiff is not that old of a guy. He's going to be around potentially for many years.
All of them believe today, Jason, all of them, and if people don't believe this, I can't help them. All of them today, especially like Schiff and Nadler and Pelosi, Schumer, yes, McConnell, all of them believe that this country is fixing to go through a major change. Our form of government, they believe, is going to change. And they're all facilitating their positions with the new government that comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
We have reason to be afraid. And what's terrible is this thing we call the deep state, which is probably better described as professional government employees that have high-level positions. They actually run the country. They run it now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the permanent
So
bureaucrats.
the government, professional government bureaucrats have control of this country now. Congress is just their showpiece or their actors to carry out their wishes. If that makes sense. Maybe I haven't explained it very well, but they're pulling the strings. The members of Congress are just doing what they're told to do by the people that keep them in power.
Mm-hmm.
We don't keep them in power.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so what do you think is going to happen next, Larry? I mean, it's...
Well, what's going to happen next, I can tell you. Iran is going to hit us. They're going to hit us.
What does that mean?
Well, they're going to strike again, except this time it's going to be a sanctioned strike. I don't believe they'll even deny they did it. They have to. The Ayatollah has to, Jason. He has to, if he's going to maintain any sense of power in the Middle East. He's got to. The only problem he has right now is figuring out how serious a strike on this country he can pull off that doesn't trip Trump, force Congress to have to give Trump the power to basically declare war on him. He doesn't want that. That's why I say he's stupid, but he's not crazy.
Hmm.
But you have to understand Islam, for him to maintain his power in the Middle East, he's got to retaliate. He made too much noise, too much saber rattling, done too much of it.
Yeah.
He's got to. But he's got to find something that he can do that will play tit for tat with, and Trump will just come down on him like a 1,000-pound gorilla.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it just seems like, how could Iran possibly hope to survive an all-out war with the United States? And it's just also seems like another big mess in the Middle East, which I think a lot of people, including me, voted for President Trump to end these wars in the Middle East. I can't get past this feeling.
Trying.
What's that?
He's trying.
Well,
I believe, truly, President Trump is trying.
okay.
But the Middle East is not the kind of country, when we got into that mess with Afghanistan and Iraq,
Yep.
getting out's never easy. Never. And you got to understand, to me, what people are missing. This general, where was he when he got killed? He wasn't in Iran. Where was he?
Iraq.
He was in Iraq. And see, what's going to happen now, if we pull out of Iraq, which now they've got the Iraqi government wanting us to. If we pull out of Iraq, Iraq will fall immediately under Iran.
Yeah.
Then that gives Iran the second and third largest oil reserves in the world. He'll have them. And what he lacks in the ability to get nuclear power, nuclear weapons, to get on the board with enough of them. He's got some, but he bought them. But what he lacks with those oil reserves, he'll be able to buy. And they will become a major nuclear power the day they take over Iraq. And Ayatollah knows it.
Yeah, well, that
It's
makes
never
sense.
been about Iraq. You know, Jason, people don't understand Iraq. When we invaded Iraq, Iraq was basically divided into three parts. Southern part was Shia. Central was Sunni. And the upper part was Kurd.
Right.
Now, what's weird, the majority of the population to the south outside of Kurdish territory, the majority of the population was Shia. But do you know what? You know what
What?
Saddam Hussein was? You know whether he was Shia or Sunni?
Oh, well, he was Sunni? Okay, yeah, Ba'ath Party, I know.
Yeah, he was Sunni. And since he was an evil dictator, he ruled with an iron thumb. The Shiites in Iraq were treated horribly. They were put in submission and held down by Saddam Hussein. And that's why I know if we're out of Iraq, the Shia will take control of Iraq, and they'll do it through their Shia brothers in Iran. They'll move right in. And the whole complexion of the Middle East will change. And then, for the first time, Jason, with the Ayatollah having the money from those oil fields, the whole situation in the Middle East will change. Plus, the Ayatollah will be able to buy the technology needed, not just for the nuclear weapons, because he's got that, but he doesn't have the delivery systems to get them here.
I'm sure he could get it from China, though.
Well, if he gets the money, he can get them.
Right.
He will get them. Now, with this dynamic out there, you see this is no time for the Democrats to be playing politics with that region. It's really not. If they don't care.
Yeah. It's like never ending with them, right? I mean, they say that they were upset that Trump did this without asking Congress, but I feel like a president destroying something with Congress's consent went out the window under H.W. Bush. They just seem to do whatever they want and declare war wherever without declaring war, just bomb places.
Yeah, but this one doesn't even fall into that classification. This general was on the approved congressionally endorsed hit list to kill or capture. He was on that list. There's no congressional authority needed. There's none, Jason.
Well, but how do they make that list, Larry? I mean, it seems like they put somebody on that list and then they can kill him and that's it. I mean, I just always feel like...
That's exactly the truth. That's exactly the truth. If you make the international terrorist list, yeah, you can be killed and you don't get to go to court. You don't get your day in court. That was one of the problems. That was one of the problems, you'll know, that came up a while back when some former American, but I guess he was still American, but when he was killed in Iraq, targeted and killed, and everybody was raising hell because, we killed him without due process.
Right.
When in in fact, the due process was achieved when he made the international terrorist list. And by the way, that general was on that list for any country, or any country that's a part of our coalition of countries.
Right. Well, we had Jimmy and Joanne Moriarty on the other day, Larry, and they were saying that this guy was fighting ISIS.
Well, Iran has a unique position with ISIS. They do fight them, but they do support them.
Mm-hmm.
If you can figure that out.
Well, it's kind of like the U.S., no?
Yeah. Well, Islam's funny, right? Islam's funny. Shias and Sunnis fight each other. If we leave Iraq, there'll immediately be a takeover of leadership. And if it is taken by the Shiites, if they take it over, you don't want to be a Sunni or a Kurd in Iraq. You will be put in submission, and you will be punished. At the same time, you don't want to be a Shia if a Sunni takes power again. That's going to happen. But they fight all the time. But when it comes to Israel and the United States, they join together.
To fight against us.
They fight together against us.
Yeah.
That's why we should have never gone in the first place to these places.
Well, that's what I mean. It just seems like escalating it is only making it worse.
Well, that's one of the American great problems. Jason, we always, for some reason, think that these other nations want to be like us, and they don't.
Right.
They really don't want to be Americans. There are not Iraqis and Afghanistan people running around, like we used to say in Vietnam, that there's an American inside of them trying to get out. That's not the truth. But we try to always force our will on these people in the name of, some humanitarian gesture, when in fact, going into Afghanistan and Iraq, certainly Iraq, not Afghanistan, but going into Iraq, is simply about oil.
Well, I mean, it was about maintaining control in the Middle East, right? I mean, they've built this huge, billion-dollar. They call it an embassy, but Larry, when I went to Sarajevo last year, there was a U.S. embassy there that the locals all basically understood to be a CIA compound. So, I mean, you got to imagine
Usually
that the people.
That's what they are.
What's that?
Usually that's what they are.
Right. So you got to imagine that the people of these countries who have had their whole country blown up by the United States, it's got to be terrible in Iraq. I mean, it was terrible to begin with, but it's got to be worse for the past 17 years. They haven't rebuilt the roads. They haven't rebuilt the industry. Iraq is not back on its feet. We just have this giant base in the middle of the place, and they're bombing whoever they want. I think most people are kind of upset by this.
And we should be. But you can't take it out on President Trump.
Right.
He wants to get out. I know that to be a 1,000,000% fact. Mm-hmm. But you've got to remember, just like we found out in the Ukraine, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes what the president wants with some of these foreign interests, not necessarily what he's going to get.
Right.
But no, we should have never gone in. As a matter of fact, that's so stated. We go in from the time we go in until the day we ever get out. The only thing that's going to change is how many Americans are going to die. Iraq's going to go back to what Iraq was. Afghanistan's going to go back to what Afghanistan was. That's the Russians.
Yeah.
Afghanistan had been conquered by a bazillion different countries, but they all left. People in the Middle East know what colonialism is, or at least what they think it is. When we move a big base in, We drive around in big Humvees and military vehicles,
Yeah.
and we act like police whenever we need to. To them, they feel like we would if the Chinese were here running up and down our streets
Right.
in armed vehicles. We wouldn't like it.
Of course not. You'd be thinking of every opportunity to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems like there's never going to be a solution until we just leave there and, do something to allow them to stand on their own economic feet.
Well, there's the problem. We've got to leave there. And in truth, Jason, the only way we're going to leave there clean, the only way we leave there clean is to pack all our stuff up and just leave. Now, when we just leave, people are going to scream that we wasted all the blood, all the lives. We wasted trillions of dollars in money. People are going to scream about it. Yes, they are. And it's going to be frustrating, right?
Yeah.
And then we've been trying to build up their economy where they could stand alone. But you can't build it up. You can't build it up for the internal corruption within these countries. We can send them $1 billion. And we can send it to build roads, right?
Yeah.
But the roads don't ever get built. Where does the billion end up?
I guess stolen.
Mm-hmm. Haven't we seen enough of that we know now to expect it?
It sounds like just an unwinnable situation. So I don't really talk to us a little bit more, Larry, about the Congress going to Jordan. Who specifically went? Who did they meet with? What was said?
Some of Pelosi's and 3 or 4 other members of the House. Pelosi, I don't think went, but there were 3 or 4 members of the House, 1 member of the Senate, and then a half a dozen of senior staffers, 4 other members of the House and Senate. Mm-hmm. They went to Jordan, and there they met with the leaders of Jordan, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Yemen, and Qatar in different meetings. It wasn't in one meeting.
Right.
And in those meetings, they went with the express purpose. Now, supposedly they went for some cultural reason, right? But the express purpose was to explain the situation in America that the Democrats were in with President Trump and to fill them in on whether or not they really were going to impeach him, what they really had.
How can they do that?
And, well, they did it. That's how you do it. Who's going to call to stop it?
Wow.
Jason?
Let's stop on that for a second, Larry. That's unprecedented. We've got now members of our government going and telling foreign countries that they can't rely on the president. I mean, isn't that act in and of itself seditious?
I would say that is treasonous.
So why doesn't Trump go and arrest whoever went there and did that? Get the DOJ to arrest them and put them on trial.
How would he do it? How would he do it? Because here, you've got the problem. They didn't go in. They didn't sign out of Washington getting on the plane saying, we're going to coerce the governments of these countries. They didn't say that's why they were going.
So how do we know that happened?
Outside, nobody, well, it leaked out to even the mainstream media. Now, when it leaked out to the mainstream media, and I'm talking about CNN and MSNBC and the others,
right.
When they put it out, you would think somebody would have done something. But there's really nothing they can do. Just because, I guess, Jason, the reason is, as long as they went for a so-called honest purpose, right? An honest purpose. What they talked about relative to their feelings, like, this is what we believe, and we feel like we need to explain to y'all since you're one of our allies in the region. We need to let you know the truth about what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure they're going to say, well, the president was telling all of them, don't worry, I'm safe. I didn't do anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're just putting their side of the story up to the leaders of those countries. So I guess in a way, they can wiggle out of it under that condition. I don't think there's anything, if you think about it, I don't guess there's it. Now, if they went and formally did it, said that's why they were going, and if we probably saw transcripts of exactly what was said, yeah, we would probably be able to go after them for some seditious act or treason.
Well, just as the same way that Adam Schiff just started this procedure in the Intelligence Committee instead of the Judiciary and started doing all this stuff that wasn't really 100% on the level, why not get William Barr to have the U.S. Capitol Police drag Adam Schiff out of there, bring him up on charges, and get him start defending himself for violating the Constitution and put him through some rigorous legal process and challenge him. It just feels like there's been no challenge to these ridiculous illegal things that they're doing.
Well, at this point, all I can do is give you the word yet.
Right. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. Now, I can tell you, Schiff has got legal problems. He does. I'm not at liberty to say what, but you kind of danced around it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But they violated the Constitution in many ways, but they did it cleverly. You know, the worst kind of criminal is a lawyer, smart criminal. Right?
Yes.
They know how to skirt the law. Now, they're still, by most honorable measures, breaking it every day, right?
Yep.
But they get right up to the line, and they know just enough and enough slick tricks to not cross over the line, or at least get caught crossing over, right?
Yep.
Well, they did it smart. They used this whole concept of an impeachment inquiry. And the fact that there are no constitutional rules that actually apply. You can't find any statute or constitutional rules that apply governing how the House has to handle an impeachment. There's not.
Mm-hmm.
Where they may have crossed the line, you do know 14 Republican members of the Senate have signed on to a motion for what you and I would call summary dismissal of the trial, just shutting the case down. Right?
I did not know that. That's good. They should do that.
They have. Now, they did it under the basis of the House must, in a timely manner, turn their articles over to the Senate.
Yep.
The issue is when they put in the thing in a timely manner, they didn't necessarily tell what that timely manner was. And so these 14 Republican senators are going under the concept that 25 days, that she had 25 days to get it to the Senate, or it's over.
Mm-hmm. Well, how long has it been?
I don't know. I mean, somebody that knows can tell us.
Yeah, we can figure it out.
I don't know if it's been 25 or longer than 25 or coming up on 25.
Yeah, I think it's been less because it was right around Christmas time that they did it.
Right before Christmas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, they're claiming that it's 25 days is the definition or the time frame for a timely manner.
Larry, Michael is telling us in the comments that breaking news, there's an Iranian missile attack underway in Iraq. So it seems like a hot war heating up even hotter in Iraq right now. Doesn't seem good to me.
Well, it's not. And that may be what I told you.
Yeah.
Iran's got to do something. They've got to do something. Now, the problem the president has, if they fire these rockets or missiles into Iraq, that does not give him standalone power to attack Iran in any way. In other words, we can't go blow up just a place or two in Iran. We can't. They're a sovereign nation.
Yeah.
So before he could go and say, take out a base that fired those missiles, if it were the case, before he could go do that, if it was inside Iran, he would have to go before Congress to get permission. And if I were the president, that's exactly what I would do. I'd put the onus on the Democrats. All right, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that you've got to remember, they fired those missiles into Iraq. So technically, Iraq should fight back. But as you know, Iraq can't fight back because we're Iraq's defense.
Right. It's interesting, Larry.
And
I'm looking
sure Iran, well, I'm sure Iran, if they did that, if that's the latest news and it's right, if Iran did that, they're putting more pressure on the Iraqi government to run us out.
Yeah. I'm not sure where Michael got that, Larry. I'm not seeing that reported anywhere. I was looking at Washington Post and CNN, and they're not reporting that.
Well, I haven't heard it. That's why I said it turned out to be true.
Concierge says 30 missiles are reported to be fired, unable to confirm the details. See, this is what I mean, Larry. They basically could tell us whatever they want. Missiles were fired, Big Bird laid an egg, it was somebody from Iran, it was somebody from China. They could tell us whatever they want with this fake news. Then they launch an airstrike, and it's, what are we going to do? The airstrike is launched.
Jason, this is what you and I have been harping on for as long as I've been doing your program with you.
Yeah.
How do we exist with a government we can't trust?
Right.
We can't trust anything. And even if you're a supporter of President Trump, which I am, we learned, obviously, in the Ukraine situation, he's limited to what he knows or what he's told. And we already know that the CIA and the other intelligence people, the communities, they don't like him.
Right.
So they're not probably telling him the truth.
Right.
That's what I worry about. I worry about him taking an action and it being a fiasco based off intelligence he got from our intelligence community that he's got some way out anyway.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the Daily Wire is reporting breaking multiple missiles fired from inside Iraq. But they're showing us this picture of missiles firing. I don't know. I mean, this could be...
And that Trump fired from inside Iraq. That doesn't necessarily mean Iran.
Well, it says breaking. Missiles fired from inside Iran at multiple bases. Targets inside Iraq, reports say.
Wait a minute. Read that again, because I misunderstood.
Yeah. Multiple missiles fired from inside Iran at multiple bases and targets in Iraq, reports say. And they're showing us a picture here that, this could be a stock photo. This could be a photo. They could be testing this in the Mojave Desert. Right. We don't know where this is coming from.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Exactly. Remember the famous picture that was used by Clinton and them in the Bosnia ordeal where they had the man carrying his child, maybe it wasn't Bosnia, maybe it's Iraq or Afghanistan, carrying this child, and how we were animals for doing it, and come to find out that was some kind of stock photo from something else.
I think they're doing that all the time.
All the time, I fear. But here again, Jason, if we can't trust the government, then how do we ever know? How can we ever know?
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is bad, Larry. This is they would literally create a nuclear war to get rid of Trump.
Mm-hmm. And think about if President Trump has do something to retaliate against Iran, all right, if he has to, think about the countries in that vicinity. Think about Jordan, think about Saudi Arabia, think about all of these countries with the trouble Trump's in. Do you want to make a commitment to start a holy war?
I mean, the whole thing is terrible. It's Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff basically, because they know they're going down. If Trump succeeds in draining the swamp and points out that Nancy Pelosi's son was, laundering money or stealing money or doing whatever he was doing, and that Adam Schiff was hanging out with Ed Buck wearing Egyptian outfits in bizarre sacrifice rituals where they were overdosing male prostitutes with meth, they're going to go to jail and their lives will be over. So I guess they figure if their life is going to be ruined and they're going to die in jail, everybody might as well die.
Well, that's the other thing I've been trying to tell you, Jason. It's all or nothing to them now.
Right.
It's all or nothing.
They're like a cornered animal.
Yes. I mean, they've got to transform our government now, or they're done. And they're not going to take being done lying down.
No.
They're not. They will never again, the forces, whoever you choose to say the forces are, the forces that want to take over America internally, transform our government, will never see an opportune time like they have now. When fully half of this nation hates with a passion the president, thanks to a controlled media, a controlled judicial system. I mean, think about it. They got all the ducks in a row, except for one thing, or two things, the presidency and the Senate.
Yeah.
And the Senate doesn't scare them being under Republican control if they had somebody else as president.
Larry, 4KC is making a good comment here. 4KC says Nancy Pelosi thinks she's the president. She really does believe she wields more power than the occupant of the White House, and they let her have it. They really...
Well, if for one second, Jason, Mitch McConnell makes any decision or thought process about a decision based off what Pelosi is threatening them with, right? I mean, unless she gets the trial the way she mentioned, she's not going to turn over the articles, etc. Just the fact that he might consider what she wants is a violation right there of separation of powers.
Exactly. I mean, the whole thing should have been dismissed based on that. I feel like any decent lawyer could go in there and work up a motion to dismiss and derail the whole thing, but they're not acting. I think a lot of people who watch us, Larry, are getting frustrated. They want to see William Barr indicting people like Andrew McCabe, James Comey, Adam Schiff, for that matter, and it just seems like this missile strike on the Iranian general was not what people wanted to see.
And if they had known that the general was available to be targeted, and the Democrats had found out that he was available to be targeted, and Trump didn't do it, we'd be talking a whole different story today, but it would be bad Trump, that he's weak.
Right. So they're going to get him for whatever he does, of course.
That's right. We cannot win.
Yeah.
We can't win.
Yeah. Now, Larry, let me just add, because we're about 40 minutes in here, and I've been negligent by not reminding people that I think this is our first or our second show of the new year. This might be our first show of the new year. And for people who are watching us each week, Larry, I want to remind people to visit nicholslive.com/donate and to use your PayPal address, nicholslive@aol.com, to send some money to Larry. If you're watching the show every week, you should send something to Larry at least once a month. Larry, we got to work on getting your Patreon page together, but in the meantime, people can use PayPal, or they can put some money in an envelope and mail it to you. If you forgot to send Larry a Christmas card, he's not going to be insulted if you send it to him a little bit late. But, Larry is dedicated to this show. I'm here in London, and Larry was very flexible with me today, changing the time of the show. We got sound problems here in the hotel, but I really appreciate you being flexible there, Larry.
Well, thank you. Look, every week that I'm on, Jason, it should become more apparent to the listeners that listener-sponsored programming is the only thing we can do as a people that we can trust, actually. Because anybody, and don't believe otherwise, folks, anybody that is advertising sponsored will at some point move into a position where they're leveraged. And that happens. I've seen it happen with me. Programs that used to have me on, call me, I can't have you on because, I hate to say it and I don't want to say it out loud. If you say I said it, I'll call you a liar. But my sponsor, blank, 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 you don't realize he's 60% of our income and they don't like you.
Right. Or even if it's not the sponsor, Larry, it's happened a million times that these leftist activists will get together and, lobby a company and totally make it difficult. Just put them in a position where they have no choice. Ban the company, basically. Boycott
it. And, folks, you have an interesting opportunity with Crowdsource the Truth. The only way we're going to get more people to bring programs like this on that are listener-sponsored is for more people to see this program be successful, you see. Yeah. Simple. It's very simple. If others could see listener-sponsored programming as being successful enough to at least pay the bills,
right,
more people would do it.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this, Larry, because Tom Spann, he's a military veteran, and he's been very active commenting on the show. He's suggesting that Donald Trump should have let Israel sort it out. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't like disagreeing with your audience, but that would be the worst thing that I would want to see. Israel is a lone island, folks, in a sea of Islam. And as I told you, and I think you can find this out anywhere, Islam don't like Israel. It just don't.
Yeah.
And they're surrounded by all sides. And it wouldn't take much. Why do you think Israel does not do more fighting in the area? Because everybody knows if Israel does something, then all of a sudden Saudi Arabia, all of those nations will side against them because they're not Muslim.
Yeah. Well, it seems like Israel and Saudi Arabia have a kind of a truce lately. Mohammed bin Salman and Bibi Netanyahu are kind of like they've had meetings and stuff, haven't they?
Right. And you see what the progressive movement is doing in Israel to Netanyahu. I mean, isn't it odd that they're doing the exact same thing to Netanyahu that they are Trump?
It's interesting for sure. I mean, I don't know that much about Israeli politics, but I can tell you, Larry, that all the same social engineers that have come after me were, initially a year or two ago saying, oh, how come Jason's not saying this or that about Israel? And everybody knows the false rumors they've spread about me.
Right. Well, I'm just telling you, if you know anything about what has gone on, they went after Netanyahu. Eventually, they ended up, I think it's all ended up, bottom line, meaning something about his wife was involved in. I know her, and she's a wonderful lady. So, but it was all done to the point of destroying his character in the eyes of the people. Mm-hmm. And then that cost him seats in their government, which is a weird kind of government where he loses power. Right. But let me assure you, the people in Israel know one thing. they would rather have, if things get bad, like they're starting to get now, that's good for Netanyahu because they trust him protecting that nation. They do. This is not a time, and they know it, for some liberal kind of peace, love, dope person to take power in Israel. They'll be crushed right now.
So people are asking if I'm saying that we don't have good intel on who's firing missiles at us and where. Yeah, Maria, that's what I'm saying. I think there's a lot of times that we're told things that aren't true to create a pretext for war. I think there's a lot of ways that information can be manipulated to fool people, and I'm just very cautious.
Well,
I mean, you go back to that gas attack in Syria.
Well, if you want an example of that, we need only to go to the original invasion of Iraq.
Right.
And the incredible intelligence we had, guaranteeing proving he had nuclear stuff, et cetera, which none was ever found. I'm not saying he didn't ship it out, but I'm saying that information turned out not to be true.
Right.
A lot of it.
Yeah.
And that was overseen by the world, supposedly, double-checking it.
Right. So that's a perfect example, Larry, of how they can, get they had, Colin Powell give that whole PowerPoint presentation. Larry, Grandpapa is asking about the Gulf Cooperation Council. How strong is that? I've never even heard of that.
Well, I don't know that much about it, but I think it's another one of the Middle East bunches of people getting together. It's never worked. They've done it under many guises, different guises. Now you say the Gulf Countries Council, whatever you want to call it. Iran don't dance by anybody's tune, but its own.
Right. Yeah, some of these conflicts in the region there are like thousands of years old. So it's such a complicated political situation. But, you got to think if somebody was having like some kind of, generations old argument with their family and some unknown person comes in and tries to resolve it, how effective is that going to be? It just doesn't seem like it's going to work.
Well, we've all seen situations where families feud within themselves, but you better not get in it.
That's what I mean.
When an outsider gets in it, it don't go well.
But that's what I mean. We're the outsider there, and we keep messing everything.
Look, doesn't it make sense, Jason, since the Middle East was reorganized after World War II? When Churchill and everybody got together and they laid out the territories and the boundaries of the different countries. Isn't it odd that we went all that time and we didn't get involved? There was a reason we didn't get involved. It was because people back then had enough sense to know what we're finding out today. It don't work.
Right.
Stay out.
Well, but also, isn't it true, Larry, that was before the creation of the petrodollar? It seems like, everyone says, they're going to get oil, like that's a way to make money, and they're going to take the oil and sell it and make that money. But that's not what it's about. This strategic struggle over oil has got to do with the petrodollar and the total value of the United States economy. As you raised a good point, and that was actually a strong point that swayed me towards thinking that even though this might be bad, you could be right. If Iran takes over the oil in Iraq, they could gain a real strategic hold over a resource that, let's face it, whether we like war or not, we like food at the supermarket. And if there's no oil and no gasoline, or the price goes up and everybody has to pay twice as much for food and all that kind of thing, it could create a real crisis. I was a little kid when it happened, but I do remember the oil embargo and the long lines at the gas station. I don't think people really think about it from that standpoint.
No, they don't. And this is a perfect example. What you're referring to was the time when Iran overthrew the Shah
and
took the American hostages.
Right.
And at that time, folks, everything shut down because so much oil had been deprived. Now, where we are today with EPA rules, etc., here's what's crazy. We in America don't burn any oil from the Middle East. We can't. That's heavy crude. We burn light crude. We can use oil in America from the United States, Mexico, Canada, and Venezuela. Now, does that mean then we don't care about the oil in the Middle East? No. The oil in the Middle East goes to Europe, China. They use it. What is still confusing to me, Jason, is why when that oil goes up to $100 a barrel and we don't burn any of it, our oil goes up as well. But it just is. Somebody, I guess, can explain that.
Well,
more about oil and gas.
And again, Larry, I don't want you or our viewers to think that I believe it's worthwhile to go to war to save the inconvenience of waiting in line at a gas station. That's not what I mean at all. It's that if the United States loses control over who is buying and selling this oil, the petrodollar mandates that every country must do oil transactions in dollars, and China, Russia, and Iran want to break away from that system. If they retain enough oil or enough control over oil in the region, they could start to, chip away at markets that are relying on this petrodollar-controlled oil, and it would have an effect on the economy in the United States even if we don't use any of that oil. I think the real reason they're interested in the oil in the Middle East is because of the deal that Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon made with the Saudi Arabia, with OPEC in 1973, creating the petrodollar. And the thing is, when the first Iran crisis happened, the hostage crisis, that system was new. We weren't so entrenched in it right now. And it's almost as if the dollar has been built up into this huge Ponzi scheme bubble over this petrodollar, where now, 40 years later, it could destroy the economy.
That's right. And as a matter of fact, Jason, one of the not spoke about out loud problems we've had for years developing the oil in the ground here, in the places that they said you couldn't drill in until Trump got in. A lot of that was over that very thing. That if we started producing oil here, there would be a good chance that if we became independent of it, which is what Trump's trying to make us and has done a good job of, it could affect the petrodollar marketplace.
Right.
And turn around and hurt us.
Right.
So they use that to block drilling in this country.
Well, you saying they, you mean the progressives and the communists who want to destroy the country. They wanted to bring us to this. Yeah. So there's a lot of reports now that Iran has retaliated. I mean, it seems like this is going to force Trump to have to do something really big to Iran. I'm concerned, I have to tell you, Larry. That's...
Well, you need to be.
Yeah.
You need to be. Because Trump is in a box now.
Yeah.
And the only way I see him getting out of the box that he's in now, if they did do this overt strike from Iran into Iraq, if that did indeed happen, he's in a box, and the only way out of that box for him is to turn around and say, okay, Democrats, House, Senate, decide. Tell me to go, tell me not to go, but the call is going to be on your backs.
Yeah. CNN is reporting that Iran Revolutionary Guards take credit after at least 10 rockets were fired at Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq.
And that's the big air base of ours.
Mm-hmm. Oh, boy.
Now, it's going to get sticky. Look, I'm not a defender of anything. I'm just trying to tell it like it is. The general was on the hit list and has been there for 2 other presidents. Now, whether they had opportunities to hit him and didn't, or whether they never had an opportunity to get him, I don't know. But he was a sanctioned hit. He was justified, Jason.
Right. Well,
But
Larry,
according to the law, he was a sanctioned hit.
right.
So no laws were broken.
No U.S. laws, right. Well, I mean, Larry, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. I think there's going to be a lot developing over the next few days. I'm going to be back in New York very soon, and we'll follow up with you as more stuff develops. I want to remind everybody to visit nicholslive.com and use Larry's PayPal address, nicholslive@aol.com, to support Larry. If you're watching the show every week, it's the right thing to do. You can also send him cash in an envelope in Conway, Arkansas. You got the address on the screen right now. People can also get in touch with Mary Ellen if you want to talk about anything. You want to find some other ways to help Larry out. Mary Ellen's number is being displayed on the screen right there. Larry, anything before we close it out for tonight? I think we're just going to have to kind of sit tight and see what develops.
Well, the next few days, I will get a heads up, I believe, to tell you, and if I do, I'll get hold of you.
Sounds good. Sounds good,
All
Larry.
right, buddy. Be
Yeah.
safe.
Good speaking to you, Larry. Thanks for being flexible on that time, and thanks everybody for watching. Don't miss more pain at 8 p.m. It'll be 8 p.m. East Coast. I'm going to try to work on a better sound situation here. Be back in 1 hour on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and patreon.com/truepundit. Thanks again, Larry. I'll speak to you soon. See everybody later tonight. Thanks so much.